Yeah, it's pretty exciting to run a business at this time. When I started to get wind of all of these amazing things that were coming to Kansas City, it was a couple of years ago, and I was just like, okay, I have the business at the right time. I need to keep going and just keep going. Like, even if I don't have business this year, because we were in the pandemic, I'm like, good things are coming. I just need to keep going. And I'm glad that I did.
Hi there. Welcome to the Connecting KC podcast. I'm Rachel Kilmer, also known as Rach the Realtor on the internet, where I love, connecting all things KC. I'm a metro area real estate agent, retired sports reporter, and mom, and probably too old to call myself a TikToker, but honestly, that's how we got here. You can learn more at www.rachtherealtorkc.com. But this show is all about introducing you to all of the movers and shakers, interesting people, heartfelt stories, and funny quirks that make this vibrant community home. So let's get right to it with today's episode of Connecting KC. Welcome into today's episode of Connecting Kansas City. This is going to be super interesting. I'm so excited because I am fascinated by the business that our guest, Lisa Pena, has founded. She grew up in Kansas City, Kansas, hiking through the woods behind her childhood home. She loves nature while at the same time craving time in the city. A former Peace Corps volunteer, avid hiker, backpacker, and Christian, Lisa loves to explore both internationally and locally. She sees beauty in the details all around Kansas City. Lisa started this business called Urban Hikes Kansas City, inspired by Alex Kennan of Urban Hiker San Francisco. She loves to share her city with others and promises that you will experience parts of the city you haven't seen before. Lisa speaks Spanish fluently, is a graduate of Sumner Academy, and has her Master's of Public Administration from UMKC. Lisa, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So your business is so cool. Like, what a cool concept. Tell me all about Urban Hikes Kansas City for people that aren't familiar. What do you guys do? How long have you been in business? And what can people expect if they go on a hike with you?
Yeah. Well, we started in 2019, and if somebody comes on an urban hike, they really experience the city on foot. So we're used to driving around the city, and we can miss so many things when we do that. However, when we're on an urban hike, we are looking at the historical details. We'll talk about the history. We talk about art that we see outside. We talk about the different businesses that are in the area and the history of the neighborhoods. We also love to go through alleyways, over bridges, and it's all this really cool experience where we're learning so much when we're on the urban hike and really learning about our own city.
What's the average person that comes on a hike? Are they typically tourists in from out of town, or is it local people more?
About 80% of our audience is from Kansas City, and then about 20% are tourists. So it's funny because you would think, oh, that's for tourists, but actually the larger part of our audience is from Kansas City.
I've been dying to go on one and I just haven't made it happen. I even bought me and my sister and our partners gift certificates for Christmas a couple of years ago, and we just never did it. It's like I feel like living in your own city, you never do the tourist things because you just get so in your day-to-day life. Like, how do you encourage people to break their routine and maybe make this a date night or a girls outing, rather than going out to happy hour or whatever you normally do? How do you encourage people to work this into their lives, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think a way that we encourage it is just by our Instagram feed. So we are posting a lot about our urban hikes on our Instagram, which is Urban Hikes KC. And people in Kansas City will see that and they're like, oh, let me do that. I think also, as folks start to look out of the box of let me go out for a happy hour, there's so many other things to do. And then people find us when they're doing that because they're looking for, fun things to do in Kansas City. And it's just also word of mouth. So it isn't me sharing specifically, but our hikers will share with their neighbors, with their friends. They'll post on social media and share about the really fun time that they had. And then other Kansas Cityans will see it and then come out on our urban hikes.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the process of researching and preparing for a hike? Do you add in hikes often, or is it just a huge undertaking so you just stick to the ones you know and are an expert in at this point?
Yeah, it takes a long time to prepare for a hike. The first hike that I had was in the Crossroads in West Side. And I remember I started out with just one hike. It took me about half a year to prepare for that hike when I was just starting my business in 2019. And now, though, we have about 10 different routes. And it takes a long time to research. We are working on some routes right now, researching them. And there's always so much more that we research than what we actually have time to share on an urban hike, especially when we go in really historically dense areas like the Crossroads or the West Bottoms. And but what we do is we look up, like we look up the information. We look up the information from the different buildings. Sometimes they have websites that talk about their history. Sometimes we have to dig a lot more than that. We see details on the buildings that give us a clue into what the building was before, and then we'll look up some of those keywords. We also love the Missouri Valley Room in the Kansas City Library. That's on the 5th floor. And there's so much Kansas City history there. We can find information about any place on our hikes if we go there. And that's a type of room where you go and you spend like the whole afternoon there doing research. And then we also talk to people. So as we like to highlight local businesses, often those business owners will know the history of really historical buildings. And we talk to them and get what they would like to share about the building as well.
Is there a hike or a route or an area of the city that is like top of your list? You really want to add that one into the rotation and just haven't been able to yet for whatever reason?
We are working on a West Bottoms hike right now. So that is in the works. And it's something that from the beginning, since 2019, I've wanted to have a West Bottoms hike, but I didn't because, first of all, there's so much in the West Bottoms. And we're finally working on it. I have a really amazing guide named Christy, and she specializes in Kansas City, Kansas. And then the west part of Kansas City, Kansas is the West Bottoms. The state line is there. And she's been working on creating a West Bottoms hike. So that's one that we're really excited for to be rolling out soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. Am I correct in saying that there are still tunnels under the city? And have you explored them? Is that on your list? Because sign me up right now. Like,
There are tunnels underneath the city. We sometimes share stories of the tunnels underneath the city. However, I haven't been able to get access. If we have a listener who does have access to some of those tunnels in a safe way, because I know that there is a whole group of urban explorers that will explore things that I might not be willing to bring a whole group of people to. However, I don't have access to those, but yes, there are stories of there being lots of tunnels underneath Kansas City.
oh man, we got to make that happen. Well, everyone listening, connect us with who you know. Get Urban Hikes KC a tunnel hike. Like, imagine doing that like around Halloween. Like, okay, now let's go down into the catacombs. Like, so awesome. So you mentioned someone on your team. Are you personally leading any of the hikes still, or do you more just run the business? How do you kind of break up your workload between running the business, marketing, researching the hikes, and actually doing the hikes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When I started out, I was doing everything. I was the sole guide. I was the sole person who led everything, who ran everything. And then I realized I didn't grow. So once I got other guides on board, then they helped to research some of the hikes that we had. We created new hikes and they lead the hikes. You asked if I still lead the hikes. Yes, I still do lead hikes. I probably give about 3 hikes a week, maybe more. But we see about 100 to 200 people per month, sometimes more than that, on our urban hikes. So I'm definitely not giving all of the hikes. It's been a challenge to divide my workload because it's as if the work never stops. There's always some research to be done. I'm grateful that I do have amazing guides that will help with that research. But I still give the hikes and I still do most of the admin work as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where do you see the future of this business going? Do you see it expanding to other cities, or do you want to stay in Kansas City and just continue to grow here? What's your vision for Urban Hikes Kansas City?
Yeah, I see that there's a lot of potential to grow here still. We do a lot of urban hikes for team outings, and I can see us doing even more of those urban hikes for team outings. Earlier, you mentioned the oh so common happy hour, and I think a lot of teams realize that, oh, they want to do something different with their teams for team building. So they reach out to us to do an urban hike and we customize it for them. So I see urban hikes growing in the way that doing much more of those. Um, Additionally, we are doing more field trips. And an example is that yesterday we had Wyandotte High School students on a field trip for an urban hike in Strawberry Hill. And I definitely foresee us doing more of those field trips as well. We have collaborations with specific school districts and are completely open to having more of those collaborations. And the neighborhoods, there are still so many more neighborhoods that could be explored. I do see us adding more hikes with time. We're in touch with the Kansas City Streetcar. We have provided, or we've collaborated with them to prepare one hike, and it was called our Artful Kansas City Streetcar Urban Hike, where we go through art galleries and boutique hotels. And it was a specific collaboration with the streetcar, and we're talking with them again to have another urban hike coming up. So I won't tell the theme of it yet, but it is in the works. So I definitely see other routes in the works as well.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't even think about field trips. That's genius. Like, what better way to learn the city's history than being like out and about in the city? How much like responsibility do you take for being almost a steward of our city's history, whether it be good, bad, ugly? Because I think there's like a lot of lessons to be learned from the way our city is even laid out, the history of redlining and all of that stuff. What's that like for you to be like an information broker on such important topics that relate to not only our city, but just like our society as a whole?
Yeah, we think it's really important to share those specific topics. For example, we have a plaza urban hike, and we don't just talk about the beautiful fountains and the beautiful mosaics on the plaza. We talk about the racist covenants that were in the plaza and the whole area around it. And then we do tell in the description of the hike that we will be talking about that. So if somebody is interested in having that discussion, then they'll know beforehand and they probably wouldn't book that hike if they were to come. But we think that it's really important to share all of the history. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to actually make changes and not let those things happen again.
Mm-hmm. Well, for field trips, is there an age that like is too young for a hike, or are urban hikes for all ages?
Urban hikes have been pretty much for all ages. We haven't had very many kindergartners. So I would say that it's usually about 7 and up. But we started with doing a lot of Girl Scout field trips, and I guess it wouldn't be a field trip if it's Girl Scouts because they're not at school, but Girl Scout urban hikes, and we have had first graders on those urban hikes. But I would say probably kindergarten is pretty young, but really we can customize them even if we had a group of kindergartners. And we would see a couple murals, we would ride the streetcar, we would get ice cream, and it would be about an hour long, and it would be super fun and done, like one and done. So we really do, customize them for the group. But I would say, like in general, it's probably 7 and up is good.
Yeah. Yeah. The littler they get, then you're like, okay, now this is the I Spy version of the urban hike. Like, I spy a building. Yeah. Have you had any crazy requests? Like someone asked for a custom hike you're like, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Crazy request. That's a good question.
Like, I don't know. Recently, I had a guest that does charcuterie boards, and she's like, I get a weird amount of people that ask for adult themed charcuterie boards, and I will not do those. So I don't know if you get like all the wackadoodles asking for all kinds of crazy tours too.
Wow. It's funny. We have a wine and cheese hike. We've never gotten that request, mostly because it's not really part of our brand, and
Sure.
maybe folks know that, but I don't think we've gotten really too many crazy requests. Just one thing that I do hear a lot is I hear you should have an urban hike like a brewery urban hike, and so I think that is an excellent idea. However, I know that there's already someone in the market that, there's a Bartley bus, and there's already someone in the market who does that. And so we pretty much don't do that. And I think that that's completely fine. So
with all of these celebrities moving to Kansas City, do you see a celebrity house tour hike in the future?
Wow, that's a great idea. I never thought about that idea. It all depends on how walkable it is or accessible for public transportation.
Hmm.
Who knows? I think one thing too, though, is that we really like to be respectful. So, one thing is that everything that we do, we get permission to do it. If we're walking by, like if we're going into a coffee shop, we've talked to them beforehand. So if I had an in on, with the celebrities so that I could ask for permission to go by their houses, then I probably would. But if not, I might not.
Don't blame you. I did one of those bus tours in LA one time and they drove us around. We're like, that's where Tom Cruise lives and that's where Oprah lives. And I'm like, we have no way of fact checking this. Like they could just be pointing at random houses. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like I have no idea. So you could go that route too, just randomly like and then have a little asterisk. This hike is not based on fact like the rest of ours are or something. Um, what was your background before launching this business, and in whatever that was, does it play into how you run your business now?
Yeah, I always worked in the nonprofits before, and I was drawn to the nonprofits because of the missions of each nonprofit. I mean, nonprofits are amazing because they really change the world by what they do. And I think that with my business, I kind of have that nonprofit lens of making the world a better place. We're helping Kansas Cityans and others to know about our Kansas City. And I feel like that's making it a better place. We're showing small businesses that might not, we're showing them to a group of people that might not have seen them before. So I would say that I do think about my, just I somewhat have that lens. Additionally, I was in Peace Corps before I had this business, and Peace Corps taught me a lot of lessons, resilience, um, also just to be culturally aware. Um, there are many ways to do things, perseverance. The list goes on and on of what I learned in Peace Corps. And I feel like those are all really key traits to have as an entrepreneur. It's really hard to be an entrepreneur because you're alone in this. Even though I have a team, I'm the one who, if anything goes wrong, like it falls back on me, and I'm the one who has to really push through. So I think that those traits and skills that I learned in Peace Corps are really helpful for being a business owner now in Kansas City.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite hike of all the hikes that you have? Is there one that's like your favorite to give for whatever reason?
Yeah, I have two favorite hikes, and I get this question a lot. So my first hike that I ever planned is probably my favorite hike. It's the West Side. It's a Crossroads West Side. As long as we go up the hidden steps up to Observation Park. And if you haven't heard of Observation Park before, it is a park that is on an extremely high hill in the west side. It has a really nice view of downtown Kansas City. A lot of Kansas Cityans haven't been there. And there are some secret steps that I have named the secret steps that literally go through the woods to get to that area. So that's my favorite hike when we go up the secret steps to get to Observation Park. However, it's really pretty closely tied to the Strawberry Hill and downtown KCK hike as well. I love that hike, and the guide that gives that hike does an amazing job. She is like a historian, and it's extremely interesting. And we really enjoy supporting KCK and highlighting it.
Hmm. How like I imagine this is such an opportunity to meet so many people. Like, what is it like the conversations you're having on these hikes outside of the content that you're sharing, just like the chit chat when you're going from one place to another? What is it like for you to meet people, not only locals, but people coming in from out of state, tourists taking on these hikes as well? Like, what is that opportunity to mingle like, and what kind of feedback do you get about Kansas City from both locals and tourists alike?
Yeah, I think the feedback is somewhat similar in that, oh, I didn't know that all of this was here. So I'm hearing that from locals and I'm hearing that from tourists. The tourists often comment on the have. For example, I have a Spray Simo mural hike that is focused on all of the murals that were painted during the Spray Simo festivals. And a lot of tourists are like, wow, I had no idea that there was this amazing mural scene in Kansas City. And then the locals they're more surprised about, I mean, they know the murals are here, but probably more the in-depth, like learning about them and who the artists are, and just in general though, like all the different nooks and crannies, they're often very surprised. Like Observation Park, mostly when I take people to Observation Park who are from here, they tell me, wow, I've never been here to this park before, and there's such an amazing view. And I get the same response when I hear um, from locals at Cop Point. And Cop Point is one of the best views of the Kansas City skyline. And many locals haven't been there. And they say, I just can't believe that this is here. So a lot of the conversations go like that.
Yeah, that's so cool. What a moment to have a business like this with where Kansas City is. We just hosted the NFL draft. The World Cup is coming. Celebrities are moving here. We're having such a moment as a city. How does it feel for you to be running a business that is so like Kansas City centric while Kansas City is in this moment on the worldwide stage, basically?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to run a business at this time. When I started to get wind of all of these amazing things that were coming to Kansas City, it was a couple of years ago, and I was just like, okay, I have the business at the right time. I need to keep going and just keep going. Like, even if I don't have business this year, because we were in the pandemic, I'm like, good things are coming. I just need to keep going, and I'm glad that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Such a huge opportunities for you, especially to grow the tourism side of it with all these people
Right.
coming in. So super, super awesome. Um, do you do any hikes like around sports? Like I'm just thinking with the current stadium going in, is that anything that you currently do or that's on the table for the future, like sports oriented hikes?
Yeah, a sports oriented hike is on the table for the future. I think it definitely could be a possibility. And I just haven't planned it at this point, but I have a lot of ideas. It could be ideas for the future, and I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, I'm sure your idea list is 10 miles long. Are you like a
It's
note Are you a notes app girl where you like roll over and you're like, oh, I got to jot that down. And then suddenly you have a phone full of chaotic ideas.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, last two questions I'm going to ask you. I ask everyone that comes on the show. First one is, what is a great meal that you've had in Kansas City recently?
Mm. I would say a meal that I had that I really loved was at Yasmin Cafe. And that is it's an East African restaurant that is on Independence Avenue in Paseo. Um, when you walk in, they have their menu on a chalkboard, and I really love their rice. They have chicken, and I always get it with chai tea. They have the best chai tea in Kansas City. That's what I would say. That if I want chai tea, that's where I go. I ask for chai tea with milk, and it's East African chai tea. So I that's a delicious meal, and one of the places that I love to go. So Yasmin Cafe on Independence Avenue in Paseo.
That sounds amazing. I have not heard that one before. So love it. Okay. Last question is kind of two parts for you. Where can people find you on social media and the internet? And if they want to book a hike, how much do hikes cost? How do they go about booking them? How far in advance do they need to book? All of that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find Urban Hikes Kansas City on our website, which is urbanhikeskc.com. We are also on Instagram and Facebook as Urban Hikes KC. So please follow us. Please sign up for our newsletter on our website. And if somebody wants to come on an urban hike, on our website, we have a button that says book today. And then we have all of our upcoming hikes. So those are the hikes that we have that are planned, and you can just buy a ticket. So our tickets are $38 a person. And the hike is usually about 3 hours, sometimes 3.5 hours long. And you just book a spot on a time like a Friday night, Saturday morning, and it's pretty easy to do, and there would be with a group of 10 other people. Additionally, if somebody would like to do an urban hike for their team, then just contact us. There is a button on our website, or our email is adventurer@urbanhikeskc.com, but we have a contact us button on our website, and we have a form for someone to fill out if they're interested in having an urban hike for their team. A lot of urban hikes with teams, and then we'll coordinate it and customize it according to what that team is looking for.
Love it. Awesome. Can't wait. I am coming on one soon. I have been wanting to forever, and I'm so excited to try it out. So thank you for all the work you do for our community and spreading the word about history, and appreciate you taking the time to join us here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
Guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.